Welcome to this deep dive. You've brought us a fascinating collection of material exploring the ins and outs of stress, anxiety, and crucially, how we can navigate them more effectively.
Yeah, it's quite a pile. Lots to unpack there.
Definitely. So our mission here is to really, distill those sources, pull out the core insights, and hopefully give everyone a much clearer picture of what's actually happening when we feel stressed or anxious, and importantly, what we can actually do about it.
Right, because the material covers quite a range, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From the basic definitions right through to like really practical techniques.
Exactly. So let's just jump right in. And something that immediately struck me reading through is this idea that stress isn't just stuff happening to us.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so tied up with our internal world,
Oh,
Our perceptions, they play this massive role.
that's a key point right from the get-go. It's fascinating how much the sources underscore that constant back and forth.
Between the outside world and our inside world.
Yeah, exactly. Between what's happening around us and how our minds and our bodies, too, actually interpret those events. It's definitely not just a one-way street when it comes to stress and anxiety.
Okay, so maybe to get a handle on this, the material starts by laying down some definitions, foundational stuff. And I found the distinction between stress and anxiety really helpful, actually.
Absolutely. That's crucial for understanding the nuances, isn't it? The sources define stress as essentially our body's kind of broad response to any kind of demand or challenge placed upon it.
Yeah.
Think of it as your system going into a state of alert,
Right.
Physically, mentally.
Right.
It's reacting to something it perceives as needing extra effort or resources.
Right.
Now, while a bit of stress, a manageable level, can actually be good for us.
Like for focus.
Or motivation.
Exactly. Sharpens focus, gets you moving the danger. And the materials really point this out, lies in that prolonged chronic stress.
Which can actually feed into anxiety itself, yeah.
Precisely. It can be a significant contributor. Okay, so that's stress. And then anxiety is presented as, well, something more specific, not just that temporary pressure feeling.
Correct. It's more about those persistent feelings, worry, apprehension, maybe even fear, feelings that start to really interfere with daily life.
So how does someone know? I mean, for someone listening, what are the signs that maybe stress is tipping over into that anxiety territory?
That's a really important question. Your sources help clarify this by differentiating between what they call normal anxiety.
Like feeling nervous before a presentation?
Yeah, or cautious in a genuinely risky situation. It's almost instinctive, protective.
Okay.
And then there's what's termed pathological anxiety. And this form, it's really characterized by its intensity, how long it lasts, its persistence.
And how much it messes with your life.
Yeah, exactly. The degree to which it disrupts normal functioning, it's not just a fleeting worry, it's a more pervasive state. It can lead to avoiding things, significant distress, that kind of thing.
Got it. So we've all got this kind of built-in alarm system, right? The famous fight or flight response. Can you walk us through how that actually kicks in according to the sources? What's happening inside us?
Certainly. So when our brain perceives something as a threat, and remember that perception is the starting gun, really, as we'll get into with the psychological theories.
Right, the perception bit is key.
A small but really powerful area called the hypothalamus steps in. Think of it like the command center.
Okay.
It initiates this whole cascade of responses. First, it activates the sympathetic nervous system that's like the body's accelerator.
It's everything revved up.
Yeah. And it also triggers what's known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis.
The HPA axis sounds complicated.
It is a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
But think of it as the central control panel for the body's stress alarm system. When it gets triggered, it sets off this chain reaction involving hormones, CRH, ACTH. And ultimately, that leads to the release of those stress hormones we hear a lot about.
Adrenaline and cortisol.
Exactly. Adrenaline and cortisol.
Adrenaline, that's the one that gives you that instant kick, isn't it? The rapid heartbeat, senses on high alert, that feeling of being instantly ready.
Precisely. It's very quick acting, designed for immediate danger. And then you have cortisol, which has a more sustained effect.
What does cortisol do?
Well, it increases blood pressure, makes sure there's plenty of glucose energy readily available in your bloodstream, keeps you fueled for the long haul, potentially.
Okay.
Now, what's neuroscientifically crucial here, and your sources really emphasize this, is that while these responses are incredibly adaptive for, short-term threats.
Like running from a tiger, the classic example.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But chronic, repeated activation, when these systems are constantly engaged, that can actually start to negatively impact key brain regions,
Which ones?
particularly the prefrontal cortex. It's vital for rational thought, decision-making, impulse
The
control.
logical part of the brain.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And the amygdala, which is heavily involved in processing emotions, especially fear. So this ongoing dysregulation, this constant stress signal messing with these brain areas, that's a really significant factor in how persistent anxiety disorders can develop and be maintained.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, because the material then shifts into the psychological side of things. And Richard Lazarus's cognitive appraisal theory, that really stands
It's a
out.
cornerstone theory.
This whole idea that it's not just the event itself, but how we actually think about it, how we appraise it, that fundamentally determines our stress levels.
Exactly.
Like our brains are running these constant split-second threat assessments, right?
Yeah.
Often based on past stuff that might not even be relevant now.
That's a great way to put it, like running outdated software sometimes.
Yeah.
Lazarus's theory is just incredibly insightful here, highlighting that subjective element. He breaks the appraisal process down into two main stages. First, there's what he called primary appraisal. This is where we essentially evaluate the significance of an event for our own well-being. We ask ourselves, is this a threat? Is it a challenge I can handle? Or is it actually pretty harmless, benign?
So using your example earlier, like getting an urgent email from the boss.
Right.
One person sees it, oh no, I'm in trouble, threat. Another sees it, chance to shine, challenge.
Exactly. Same event, potentially totally different primary appraisal.
Okay, so that's primary appraisal. What's the second stage?
Then comes secondary appraisal. And this is where we sort of take stock of our own resources for coping with the situation as we've just perceived it.
So we ask ourselves.
Things like, do I feel equipped to handle this? Do I have the skills, the support network, the time, the energy? What tools do I actually have in my toolbox right now?
And the theory goes, stress and anxiety really ramp up when we see something as a threat and we feel like our resources are lacking, not enough to deal with it.
That's the core of it, yes. It's that perceived mismatch, the gap between the demands we see in the situation and our perceived ability to actually meet those demands.
Wow. And the sources really hammer home how personal this whole thing is, right? How subjective.
Hugely subjective. That's precisely why different people can have such wildly different reactions to what looks like the exact same situation on the outside.
Because their appraisals are totally different.
Completely. Shaped by their unique history, their beliefs about themselves, about the world, even just how they're feeling emotionally or physically in that moment. It all feeds in.
The sources also dig into this concept of learned helplessness. Now, this sounds, pretty disheartening. The idea that we can actually learn to feel powerless.
It can be quite a negative cycle, absolutely. Learned helplessness, as your materials explain it, tends to develop when we repeatedly experience negative events that we perceive as being completely beyond our control.
To the point where you just stop trying.
Pretty much. You start to believe that your actions simply don't make a difference, even when maybe objectively opportunities for change or escape do actually exist.
And this came from animal studies originally, with Seligman.
That's right, Martin Seligman's early experiments. But it has really profound implications for understanding human psychology too, including how we respond to stress and anxiety.
So if someone keeps facing setbacks, say, at work, and feels like nothing they try works, they might just eventually give up and feel totally helpless, even if there are things they could do.
Precisely. And that belief, that feeling of powerlessness, can unfortunately kind of spread, can generalize to other areas of life too. And what's particularly relevant here is that this feeling, this lack of perceived control, can be a major driver of both depression and, interestingly, heightened anxiety.
How does it drive anxiety? It seems counterintuitive almost.
Well, if you truly believe you're unable to influence negative outcomes, that sense of unpredictability, of vulnerability, that can be intensely anxiety-provoking in itself. You feel exposed without agency.
Okay, I see that. So feeling in control is protective then.
Massively. Your sources rightly emphasize how important it is to foster and maintain a sense of personal control or agency as a crucial factor in buffering against the negative impacts of stress.
Okay, but it's not all just happening inside our heads, is it? The appraisal, the sense of control, the material also looks at our social connections, our environment.
Absolutely. We don't exist in a vacuum, do we? We're inherently social creatures.
Right.
And our interactions with others, the environments we live and work in, they play a huge role in shaping how we experience stress. Your sources really highlight the critical importance of social support.
What does that actually mean, social support?
It's that emotional support, someone listening, validating your feelings. It's informational support, getting advice, different perspectives, and it can be practical assistance, help with tasks, tangible aid.
So family, friends, colleagues.
Yeah, anyone in your network.
Uh-huh.
Having a strong supportive network like that can act as a really powerful buffer against the negative effects of stress.
It's like having a safety net, right? People you can lean on, maybe get a different perspective from when you're totally overwhelmed, or just vent to someone who gets it.
Exactly. That validation, the advice, the practical help, it can all significantly lessen the perceived burden of whatever stressful thing is happening.
But there's a flip side, too. The sources mention the dual nature of groups.
Yes, that's a really important point they make. While positive connections definitely build resilience, negative social pressures, conflict in relationships, feeling isolated, being judged, those things can actually amplify stress and anxiety.
Yeah, I can see that. Like being in a really toxic work environment, maybe constant fighting or undermining.
Precisely. That's undoubtedly going to ramp up stress levels significantly.
Okay.
And then your sources kind of zoom out even further, touching on things like cultural norms and broader environmental factors.
Like how?
Well, for instance, think about how different cultures view talking about stress or mental health. Is it encouraged? Is it seen as weakness? That can hugely impact whether someone feels okay seeking help or even just admitting they're struggling.
Right. Stigma plays a role.
Definitely. And similarly, factors like socioeconomic status, the conditions at your workplace, even the safety and stability of where you live, these can all have a substantial impact on your baseline stress levels and the resources you actually have available to cope effectively.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What stress and anxiety are, the biology, fight or flight, HPA axis, the psychology, how we appraise things, learned helplessness, control,
Right.
and the social and environmental context. Now let's pivot. Let's get really practical. What kind of effective coping strategies do the sources highlight? What can we actually do?
Okay, yeah, the practical side. Your materials provide a really comprehensive overview, and you can sort of group the strategies. First up, there are cognitive and behavioral techniques.
Thinking and doing stuff.
Basically, yeah. Cognitive reappraisal is a big one here.
We touched on appraisal earlier, so this is about changing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It involves actively, consciously working to reframe how you think about a stressful situation. So instead of automatically seeing a setback as like a total disaster,
Right.
you might consciously try to view it differently, maybe as a learning opportunity, a chance to build resilience, develop new skills.
Okay. It takes effort, I imagine.
It does.
Yeah.
But interestingly, research mentioned in your sources suggests that doing this, engaging in cognitive reappraisal, can actually lead to measurable physiological changes,
Like what?
like lower levels of cortisol, for example. And people report more positive emotional responses, too.
Wow. So changing your thoughts can change your body's stress response.
Seems so. It's pretty powerful.
Okay, so that's cognitive reappraisal. What about the behavioral side, the doing stuff?
Problem-solving skills fit right in there. Your sources suggest breaking down those big, seemingly overwhelming problems into smaller, more manageable steps.
Bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. By developing a structured, step-by-step plan to tackle the different parts of a problem, you can regain that crucial feeling of control we talked about earlier.
Which reduces the anxiety.
Significantly, yes. It combats that feeling of being overwhelmed and helpless. Instead of being paralyzed by this huge, vague problem, you're taking concrete, actionable steps.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, the sources also highlight mindfulness and relaxation practices. These seem, well, they're everywhere now, aren't they?
They are getting a lot of attention, and for good reason, based on the material. Mindfulness meditation, for instance.
What's the core idea there?
As your materials explain it, it's about intentionally bringing your attention to the present moment, paying attention on purpose without judging whatever comes up.
Not getting lost in thoughts about the past or future worries.
Precisely. It can be incredibly valuable for disrupting that cycle of rumination, getting stuck replaying stressful thoughts over and over again in your mind.
Yeah, the mental hamster wheel.
That's it. And numerous studies, some likely cited in your sources, have shown that regular mindfulness practice can indeed lead to significant drops in anxiety levels and an improved ability to regulate our emotional responses. It's like giving your mind a break, a chance to just be...
Like training your brain to focus differently. Okay, what about the more physical techniques, body-based stuff?
Progressive muscle relaxation and various deep breathing exercises are key players there. These techniques directly target the physiological side of the stress response.
How so?
Well, for example, practicing slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing from your belly that can directly stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system.
That's the brake system, right? Counteracts fight or flight.
Exactly, the rest and digest system.
Mm.
Stimulating it helps slow your heart rate, lower blood pressure, and generally promote a feeling of calm. Directly pushes back against those fight or flight symptoms.
Okay. And progressive muscle relaxation.
That involves systematically tensing and then consciously releasing different muscle groups throughout your body. Tense your fists, hold, release. Tense your shoulders, hold, release, and so on.
What does that achieve?
It can promote a state of deep physical relaxation, which then often has a knock-on effect on your mental state, helping to reduce tension and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like actively telling your body it's okay to let go.
Right, signaling safety to your brain through your body. Makes intuitive sense. The material also mentions social and lifestyle strategies. These feel maybe a bit obvious sometimes,
Yeah.
but still important.
They might seem self-evident, but yes, they're fundamental in a comprehensive approach. Building, and importantly, nurturing strong social support networks is absolutely crucial.
We talked about the buffer effect.
Exactly. Actively engaging with supportive people, talking openly with friends, family, participating in groups, maybe seeking peer support. It provides invaluable emotional relief, different perspectives, and helps us feel less alone in whatever we're facing.
And then the basics: exercise, diet.
Yep, the fundamentals. Regular physical exercise, fantastic way to burn off stress chemicals, boost those mood-lifting endorphins. And maintaining a healthy, well-balanced diet gives your brain the nutrients it needs to function optimally and manage stress better.
And sleep. We absolutely cannot forget sleep. I know for me, my ability to handle anything just plummets if I haven't slept well.
You're not alone there. Your sources definitely underscore the critical restorative power of getting enough quality sleep.
It's not just about feeling tired, is it?
Not at all. It's vital for cognitive function, thinking clearly, making decisions. It's crucial for emotional regulation, or just our overall resilience to stress. When we're consistently sleep deprived, our coping capacity is significantly weakened. It really affects everything.
Okay, so we have all these different components, these tools. Understanding stress, managing thoughts, relaxation, social connections, lifestyle. How do we put it all together? How do we actually build resilience?
That's the essential synthesis, isn't it? Your materials describe resilience not as some fixed trait, but as this ongoing process. It's about integrating these various coping strategies into our daily lives.
Building that toolbox you mentioned.
Exactly. Building that mental and emotional toolbox that you can actually reach for when you're facing challenges. It involves developing self-awareness.
Knowing your triggers, your warning signs.
Yes. Being able to recognize your own individual stress triggers and those early signs that things are getting tough. Then it's about consciously, consistently using those cognitive techniques, reappraisal, problem solving.
Like making mindfulness a regular thing.
Making mindfulness or other relaxation practices a regular part of your routine, absolutely. And also, crucially, knowing when and how to reach out for support.
Whether that's friends, family, or maybe professional help.
Precisely. Knowing your limits and being willing to seek help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
So it's not really about trying to get rid of stress completely. That seems impossible based on everything we've discussed.
Probably an unrealistic goal, yes, as the sources likely suggest. It's much more about developing that inner capacity, that flexibility to bounce back from adversity, to navigate those inevitable bumps in the road with greater effectiveness and ultimately better well-being.
Right. Bouncing back, not avoiding the bumps altogether.
Exactly. And the research, the growing body of research, consistently shows that taking this kind of proactive, multifaceted approach, addressing the mind, the body, the social connections, leads to significant, lasting improvements.
Improvements in what specifically?
Not just in our emotional well-being, though that's huge, but also in our physical health outcomes and even our overall sense of satisfaction and meaning in life.
Wow. This has been incredibly insightful, really pulling out the core threads from all this information. So to try and boil it down, it really seems like our experience of stress and anxiety isn't just something that happens to us.
No, definitely not passive.
It's this really dynamic interplay, isn't it? A complex mix of those external things happening and our own internal responses, how we perceive things, how we cope.
Exactly. By gaining that deeper understanding, the cognitive side, the biology, the social factors, we really empower ourselves. We get this diverse range of strategies we can actually use.
From shifting our thoughts
to actively building better support systems, to just prioritizing the basics like sleep and movement, it all adds up.
Okay. So, for everyone listening, as you process all of this, maybe take a moment. Reflect on which of these insights, or maybe which specific strategies, really resonated with your own experiences.
What clicked?
Yeah. And maybe think about what's one small, concrete step, something you could realistically try to incorporate into your life, starting now. Not just to manage the immediate stress, maybe, but to actually foster that longer-term personal growth, that emotional resilience, that overall well-being.
Because that's really the ultimate goal, isn't it? Moving beyond just coping towards thriving.
Absolutely. That feels like the perfect place to leave it. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.